Hi, I'm Maddie Beaumier.
I'm Maria Burke.
And we're the curators of It's an Honor to Be Here at the Decorative Arts Center of Ohio in Lancaster, Ohio.
This exhibit's just a celebration of Ohio and its natural resources, its complex ecosystems, and just the beauty that we have all around us and in our backyard. And it's shown to us through the eyes of almost 40 artists that are all from Ohio and have dedicated their art and craft to representing nature in all of its forms.
The exhibit is broken into 5 different galleries. The first gallery is focused on details. The second gallery is focused on beginnings and growth. The third gallery features a reading nook and a reflection space and has artworks focused on humor.
The fourth gallery is all about nature and motion. The final gallery is all about nature and humans' impact and how we can look to the future.
And now we'll go a little bit more in depth into each one of the 38 artists we have exhibited.
This piece is made by Mansfield native Alex Brown. He is an avid hunter and outdoorsman. He's very into conservation and creating natural habitats on his own property. He actually found these 2 bucks with their antlers locked in place, drowned in his pond. He quickly notified ODNR and got permits so that he could collect the skulls. He cleaned them and turned them into this amazing piece of artwork. This wood is all laminated. It's all joined with mortar and tenon. The granite rock that's in the bottom was actually collected from the bottom of the pond that the 2 deer drowned in. He made this piece really just to celebrate the beautiful animals. Unfortunately, they succumbed to their situation, but he wanted to be able to share the beauty of them and the power that they both have. The fact that they're able to get their antlers stuck together like that would have had to be from a lot of force.
This is artwork by Amy Casey. We found her through the Ohio Arts Council. She does these incredibly detailed, playful portraits of mushrooms and just the tiniest things. When you look at her work, especially when it's listed online, it's really hard to tell the scale of it. Like, we assumed that these were going to be giant pieces, and we were emailing back and forth, and she's like, I just want to let you know these are tiny. And I was really excited, especially in a salon-style show. It's really wonderful to have works of all different sizes and as well as mediums and breadths. It gives you a larger scope of how impactful work can be, no matter the size or how it's made.
This is Anne Geisey's work. She's a naturalist and a very accomplished illustrator. She's one of my favorite artists that's in this show, just because of the work that she does, combining different elements of nature and their habitats. Several of the pieces that she has have native orchids and warblers, and a few pieces that talk about the relationships between moths and their host species. Anthony Rogers is one of our photographers that's featured in this show. Anthony does amazing close-up photography of beautiful animal portraits. He goes out and seeks animals that are rare and hard to find, reptiles and amphibians and insects. He really loves to photograph beetles. His work is very interesting because it creates this sense of curiosity. Anthony is also a science educator. He teaches high school in the Cleveland area. So he kind of looks at things very differently in that he's trying to capture something that most people wouldn't be able to experience. And he does that through photography, which is quite amazing.
This is Artie Nelson. Artie Nelson is a photographer. She's a professor at OSU, and her work focuses a lot on specimen collections, which we thought was really important to include in the show because of all of the different hands that these specimens pass through and how different people glean different things. The documentation process for what a species is, what it was, how it contributes, how we interact with it. It's a lot deeper than a lot of people see, and the process behind that is really interesting, and I think just her space in that as a documenter of the documentation is really fascinating. This is Benjamin Montag. He has 4 pieces in the show. He is a wonderful naturalist photographer who's focused a lot on microplastics, and we thought it was important to include it in the way that we've looked for a range of artworks and a range of approaches to what naturalist art can be. We thought it was an importantly honest representation of what our waterways look like now and what inhabits them, and when you're looking closely, how microplastics are everywhere and therefore they exist in a naturalist exhibit as well.
Bill and Louise Goebel, they're from Vinton County, Ohio. The 2 of them have a large property that they have built up with native plants and wildlife. They've done a lot of planting of native berry-producing plants and trees that they then use to do eco-printing. They start with a piece of silk that they then layer with bits of leaves, berries, different branches from trees, ferns. Those are then sandwiched between a sheet of cotton fabric, which is then set into a steaming bath with various different minerals like iron and salt that's then introduced to an acid, and the tannins that are in the plants create these amazing colors that come out. So every time they make a piece, they never quite know what's going to come out of it, but they're able to create some fantastic patterns and overlaying of color. The 2 of them are married, but they are both artists in their own right. You can actually tell who's made what piece, where Bill likes to work more abstractly. Louise likes to make more of a image where you can see the individual leaves and the layering of the pattern. This piece is by my good friend Carrie Elvey. Carrie has been a naturalist for over 20 years professionally. She is from Holmes County, a little community called Shreve. She has been teaching kids, adults, children for decades about nature, taking them outdoors and giving them a new experience that they never would have had before. She's been inspiring people her entire life. She also happens to be a fantastic artist. She is a blacksmith, just a woman of all different kinds of trades and knowledge. Carrie forged this weevil out of recycled metals that she collected from old barns around the Holmes County area. She hand forged it with an anvil, and just the time and strength and thought that went into it is just pretty amazing. Carrie really loves to highlight different insects and creatures that live in our environment that not necessarily most people would appreciate. She makes art with them as subject to inspire people to learn more about them and to appreciate them. This piece is by Chip Went. He's from New London, Ohio, Lorain County. Chip happens to be a national championship taxidermist. This piece here of 2 Alabama-caught alligator snapping turtles actually won the national championship last year. Chip is an incredibly talented reptile taxidermist. He's been honing his art for decades. Chip is also a active environmental scientist, working in water quality, so he really lives and breathes nature, and you can see it through his work.
This is Daniel Rent. She's an artist out of Dayton. She's an incredible printmaker who overlays with watercolor and colored pencil to create these wonderful mosaics of nature in the midst of growth and overlapping, and they're just these really beautiful pieces. One of a really great part of this exhibit was going all around the state and picking up artworks and getting to visit artist studios. Daniel has this incredibly light-filled studio. It's in a warehouse district in Dayton that's been completely repurposed. It's an old factory that's just been made into these wonderful bright spaces where people are just making the most beautiful work.
This piece is by my good friend Dave Might. Dave is from the Cincinnati area. He's actually the taxidermist and sculptor for the Cincinnati Museum Center. Dave has worked there for several decades, and his work is all over that museum. He sculpted the Smilodon, he sculpted the dire wolves in the Ice Age. Dave has done taxidermy that is all over the Natural History Museum there and the Hefner Museum in Oxford, Ohio. Dave is probably one of the most talented people I have ever known. Everything in this piece right here, between the fish and the dragonfly, is all handmade. He either molds and casts pieces from real specimens, or he sculpts them. Even the little tiny wings, he was able to vacuum form and then paint every little tiny detail. Sometimes he uses decals to get some of the tiny vein details on the dragonfly. His work is incredible, and he's one of the people that I really wanted to feature in this exhibit.
This is Deb Burkabile. She's a quilter. We found her through the Lake Erie Fiber Arts League, and her work is just so incredible. She's government communication and information systems certified and uses those maps to create these quilts. This one is based on Yellowstone National Park and the waterways throughout there. And yeah, the GCIS is basically the background software behind most of the environmental efforts that document where and what is happening all over the planet. It's wonderful to see that transferred into something as different as a piece of fabric art. Above me we have Donna Barger's work. I met her through a watercolor show that I installed at the Rife Gallery, and I was gallery sitting, and she came in to check out the show, and we're having a conversation about how to get more involved in group shows because she had had such a wonderful time being part of that one. And it was great timing. I got to tell her about the naturalist exhibit me and Maria were working on, and she's been wonderful to work with. Her work is just so beautiful, so detail-oriented, and so thoughtful, and we're really grateful to have her as part of the show.
This is Emily Ulm. She is a tile maker. Her pieces have actually been installed all over the country, including a restaurant in London, England. She makes tile work that's meant to be installed in fireplaces, kitchen backsplashes, but they're really pieces of artwork in their own right. Emily was a little reluctant to be in the art show. Emily said that she didn't have a lot of experience being in art shows, which we found surprising because her work is just so beautiful. Her little animal characters have so much personality, and they just all work together so nicely. She's another artist that we really love because she makes functional art that you can actually use and appreciate in your home. But all of her art is all nature related. She's a big fan of animals and our native wildlife, and it really shows in her work.
This is Frederick Marsh. He's a photography professor at Ohio State University. He's actually the husband of Artie Nelson, who brought him into the show. Frederick's work focuses on specimen collections. I got to go over to his house and see their incredible garden and meet their Mancoon cats while collecting artwork, which was a highlight. I met Gloria Shows during the pandemic when we were working together at the Springfield Museum of Art as preparators. She was one of the first new friends I made when I moved back here, and she's an incredible artist whose work focuses a lot on landscape and place and memory, and we thought that was a really important concept to bring in, and especially through the intricacy of how she puts her work together and how she brings very familiar concepts into a more abstract realm through contemporary art and printmaking. Gregory Spade, we found him through the Ohio Arts Council's website, and we fell in love with his work immediately. Just his details and his philosophy behind it was really exciting to read. It was so in line with what we were trying to show. And then we were emailing with him and learned more about him and found out that he had shown at the Museum of Modern Art and the Smithsonian. He was part of the Paul Getty Museum. We were really just honored that he wanted to be part of our show and how excited he was to participate.
These 3 pieces are by Hannah Sickles. She's an Athens, Ohio native. Hannah works in watercolor, and she also does enamel jewelry. Most of her work revolves around nature and landscapes in Ohio. These 3 pieces here are views of forest floors. I love her work because she puts in these little tiny details of little creatures that are almost playful. Her pieces, they're just very charming.
This is Jessica Gerving. She has 3 pieces in the show. We were really excited to include representation of commercial art, something that usually doesn't make it into a lot of gallery shows, and we were just so excited to show the breadth of what naturalist art could be. She does layouts for Wild Ohio magazine. She does all sorts of wonderful design work, and to be able to frame these and bring them in as the pieces of art that they are, to show that commercial art is art and should be represented as such, was a really exciting opportunity.
This piece is by Julie Zickafoos. She's from Whipple, Ohio, which is Washington County. Julie Zickafoos is an author, an illustrator, a wildlife advocate, big-time birder, and she's also a licensed wildlife rehabber. She's been rehabbing baby birds and injured birds for nearly 30 years. Julie was working on writing a book about the development of the baby birds that have been in her care. This is a panel from that book, but this specific panel was never published. This is the first time that it's been shown, and it is remarkable to see the life-size gouache illustrations of the development of these little nuthatches. Julie held the little birds in her hands as she painted them and wrote little notes about their development and how they were changing and growing. Julie has a big heart for little injured birds, and she's just very inspiring. This piece here is made by Laura Rocketenitz. Laura is from Cleveland, Ohio. She pulls from her Ukrainian heritage with her beadwork, that she creates these images that represent or mimic images from nature. She really likes to work with reflections and playing with biomimicry. This beaded piece in particular has over 2,500 glass beads that she hand wove. It represents an image of reflections on water. She likes to take photographs of reflections on water everywhere that she travels. This piece is by Leslie Sims. Leslie is from Marengo, Ohio, of Morrow County. She's a retired science teacher. She taught in Columbus Public Schools for over 30 years. Leslie dedicated her life to educating kids and the public about nature. I met Leslie through her taxidermy work. Leslie is one of the few female taxidermists in the state of Ohio, which she is very accomplished at. She put her career of illustrating animals on hold while she was working as a teacher so that she could focus more on educating kids about science. After she retired just a few years ago, kind of took up the habit of drawing again and realized that even after not drawing for several decades, that it really is just like riding a bike. She was able to get back where she started in illustrating the same quality of pieces that she did before. Now she's been really pushing her art form, doing watercolors, pastels, color pencils, being a female taxidermist and wildlife illustrator. She's just a really inspiring person. These pieces here are made by ceramicist Linnea Campbell. Linnea is from the Cincinnati area. She's a very talented potter. She does all of her hand-thrown pots. What's unique about Linnea's work is not only her craftsmanship, but she's also a very skilled illustrator. She uses a technique of silk screening, where she's able to silk screen the images of her illustrations onto her pottery, and then does a series of glazes on them. Linnea really likes to highlight different animals, especially insects, that she appreciates in nature that she feels other people should have in their home. And all of her work is very functional and usable, so it's a nice way to have a little bit more nature in your everyday life.
It's a piece by Liz Morrison. She and I have known each other for nearly 15 years now. I met her through my work at 83 Gallery. She used to be my poker buddy back in the day, and she's explored a lot of different professions throughout her life, but something that's always remained constant is her naturalist art. I was really excited to be able to include her in the show.
This tundra swan decoy is made by Luke Costello of Amherst, Ohio. Luke is a championship working decoy carver. He's also an avid hunter, and Luke is also very involved in wildlife conservation. He operates drones looking at different regions of Ohio to identify areas with invasive plants that need to be treated and removed, and then is able to plan for restoration projects using the data from his drone shots that he captures. Luke learned the art of decoy carving from his father, Mark, who comes from a long line of decoy carvers in Ohio. This father and son duo are both national championship carvers. Their work has been featured on covers of magazines. This tundra swan was actually a gift to his wife. It was taken with them on a hunting trip, and he successfully was able to harvest several swans using this decoy. You don't usually see tundra swan decoys, so this is a very unique piece, and with his craftsmanship and quality, it's pretty amazing.
This is Lynn Whitney. This is her series on Lake Erie shoreline, and the reason I really wanted to include her in this show is it's the only representation of people that we have, and I love the simplicity of people interacting with natural spaces, with metro parks, and yeah, Lynn Whitney has 5 pieces in the show.
These 2 pieces are done by me. I live in the Hocking Hills region of Ohio. My background is in scientific illustration, but I like to do paintings in gouache. It's an old art form of painting. I start out with a black substrate and then layer the color up with the gouache, which is very opaque. I like to use the subject matter of native Ohio wildlife. Working in a natural history museum for over 10 years, I really gained an appreciation for our native wildlife. Also, as a taxidermist and a museum model maker, I have several other pieces in the show that are of different species from Ohio. I like to be able to do taxidermy and model making and making paintings of plants and animals from Ohio because it gives the viewer an opportunity to experience these animals in a way that they typically never would be able to. It also highlights some of the neat relationships that they have with other plants and animals in their environment.
This is Maria Juhas. We were really excited to be able to include some surrealist natural art in the show. It's kind of a rare thing to find, and it's just such a special piece to be able to look at decay and change is part of the entire natural spectrum, and have an artist who explores that.
This necklace here is by Marjorie Bledsoe. Marjorie is from the Athens, Ohio area. Marjorie is a very talented wire wrapping artist. They use a lot of natural stones and pull a lot of inspiration from nature and the wildlife that they have on their farm that they live on in Athens County. Marjorie will take pressings of flowers that they harvest from their native prairie. They then take the pressed flowers and make beautiful pendants and pieces of jewelry. Marjorie has this one piece in the show. This loon decoy was carved by Mark Castillo. Mark is not only an accomplished decoy carver, but he also happens to be the mayor of Amherst. Mark and his son are both avid hunters and huge advocates for wildlife conservation and habitat restoration. Together with his son, they work to restore habitats, including large parcels of land that they have purchased themselves. Mark comes from a long line of decoy carvers from Ohio. He learned much of his skills from the well-renowned decoy carver Bob Franta, also of Amherst, Ohio. Mark is also an author. He authored a book on decoy carving, which is very interesting, that we have here in the exhibit that you can read. Both Mark and Luke, his son, and even his uncle Dave have all competed nationally with their decoys. What's really unique about their decoys is that they are meant to be tools. They actually hunt with these decoys. They're working tools, but the Castillos have developed a way of painting and sculpting that they have the same quality and detail as a decorative decoy.
Marty Cotter's work, we found her through the Ohio Arts Council website, Individual Excellence Awards winners. Yeah, we were really excited to bring her work in. She does very specific species work, and she learns so much about the species that she studies in order to make these pieces. It's fabric art, it's a quilt, it's a really unique way to represent these species, and we were excited to include somebody who learns so much from their subjects.
This piece is by Nora Steele. Nora Steele is a very talented artist from the Fairfield County area. She's originally from Columbus, but she is now a full-time naturalist at Waukena Nature Preserve, which is part of the Fairfield County Parks system. Nora started doing illustrations to help educate the kids and the public that come through the Nature Center. Through that process, she discovered that she's a very talented illustrator. She works digitally, working on a tablet. All of her pieces are all nature-related, where she likes to display different systems within nature, different species. Since she works digitally, she's able to create lots of different work from the pieces that she makes. She uses them to educate the public at the Nature Center, and also sells her prints just as beautiful pieces to have in everyone's home. These 4 pieces are by Cleveland-based artist Rachel Yurkovich. Rachel works with video and photography. She also happens to work on interactive media for the Cleveland Metro Parks and Zoo. Her personal work that she does likes to look at humans' impact on nature and our relationship within it. These pieces all highlight different forms of traces that humans have left in their environment, between balloons that have gotten away and tangled in a tree to a bird that has flown into a window and died. Rachel likes to force the viewer to really look at things in a different way and to be reflective of their place within nature and how they have an impact on it. This piece is by Hocking Hills area artist Spirit Williams. Spirit has been carving wood for close to 50 years. She doesn't use any power tools. Spirit only uses hand chisels and sharp blades to do all of her relief work. Spirit's been carving wood for decades, doing work in German village architectural pieces, but now mainly does pieces that are either nature inspired or portrait pieces. Spirit has done pieces that have been shown all over the country. She has an exceptionally large piece featured at the Columbus Zoo that is of safari African animals that people might be familiar with seeing at the Columbus Zoo. And that was Spirit's handiwork. Her work has been featured on the cover of Reader's Digest. She's kind of a Hocking Hills treasure. This piece here is by Fairfield County artist Sue Finch. Sue Finch really thinks of herself more as a photographer, which she is, an incredible photographer of wildlife. But this piece is special to me because it's a piece that she worked on during the pandemic. She's a big birder, and naturalist. She does outdoor education at Camp Odioqua. This piece was created during the pandemic when she was going birding up at McGee Marsh, which is a big birding destination that is not only in Ohio, but it is known internationally for the breadth of birds that come through yearly on migration. Sue was at McGee Marsh photographing all of the little warblers that were coming through and then using her photographs as inspiration for these 3 paintings. I love it because they're so well done and they're so beautiful for somebody who doesn't consider themselves a painter.
This is by Sue King. She's a fabric artist who does an incredible amount of layered painting. She uses bleach in her work. She even does painting with trash. She has some from the Yellowstone National Park that she was able to take out of there. She is a local Lancaster artist. We've been really lucky to see her work at the Hall Pass Gallery right down the street. She does classes locally, and she's a well-known character about town. It's a piece by Bill Mann. We've just been so lucky to work with him in the process of exhibit design at the Decorative Arts Center here. When we started talking about this show, he very sheepishly brought up that he had actually been making some artwork. And when he showed me a picture of this piece, it just perfectly encompassed what we were trying to show through this exhibit. It's about time and it's about loss. And he has all of the he has a bunch of different species that we've lost over time, backed by a bit different cultures that have been lost. You can just see his love and his exhibit design and his experience with the Ohio History Connection, and it so wonderfully encompasses all of his work, and we just feel so lucky to be able to work with him and to include his artwork in the show.
One thing I want people to take away from this exhibit is just the knowledge that no matter where you live and what community you're from, there's nature all around you, in your backyard, and it's just waiting there to be discovered. And also that anybody from any background can really be an artist. If you have the passion and the drive and the patience to learn a craft, you can make just about anything.
Yeah, we're hoping that people are inspired by the exhibit to look more closely at their environment and to really see the force of creation that exists in them and all around them.